Good afternoon, Ghana, and welcome to informGhana's G+ Hangout called Walk the Talk. This is a prelude to tomorrow's event, which will be focusing on solutions to Ghana's main challenges. So just to give a short introduction, this event is by a project that was started by Blogging Ghana, that's the Bloggers Association of Ghana. And Blogging Ghana is handling the informGhana project as a result of some funding received from Start Ghana. So informGhana was started in October 2013, and it's been a year since they've been going around the country talking to people, highlighting key issues, current issues. And today what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the main challenges that they've identified and try to propose some solutions. So before we get into the discussion, I'm going to hand over to my co-moderator, Edward, who is going to tell us about some of the problems that were identified nationwide by informGhana.
Thank you very much, Jemila. And as you mentioned, yes, my name is Edward, and I am a part of the project and a part of the mother organization, Blogging Ghana, which is the biggest association of bloggers. We set, thanks to Start Ghana, we got some funding to bring some issues in Ghana to light, and the issues were on four major themes, because these are the themes that affect Ghana the most. The themes are health, governance, agriculture, and education. And what we've done in the past 13 months is to go around Ghana, the length and breadth of the country, to bring different players in the society, in the community together, duty bearers, be them chiefs, assembly members, MPs, DCEs, and citizens, and also the players in those areas, to just discuss their problems. Because what we've realized was that there is currently a disconnection between the people who face the problems. That's if it's in Agric, the farmer who faces the problem is disconnected from the Ministry of Agric in Accra, or probably also disconnected from the assemblyman or the DC who can help solve the problems. What we did was we brought all these players under one umbrella so that they can actually discuss and what we did was we fostered some kind of solution or problem-solving agenda. We are rounding up the first part of the project. It's very likely we will come up with a second part. We'll continue. But what we wanted to do after we wrap up the project is to give young Ghanaians who may have solutions to the problems that we've identified across the country the opportunity to come up with solutions. And what we want to do is to channel the frustration that people face, as a bit online into something positive. The question we ask is, yes, we rant every now and then. What are you gonna do about it? So we are fusing these two elements. An element where young Ghanaians are frustrated about some of the things that are happening, and elements, the list of problems we have identified, and we're asking whether they can help solve. In order to make this more fruitful, what we want to do is to bring governments to listen to young Ghanaians. So this is what's happening tomorrow. Young Ghanaians with brilliant ideas are going to present before government, and we would follow up to see how far government will pick up some of these points highlighted. So basically, that's an overview of Ghana, an overview of Walk the Talk, and we're having a hangout today to show more tomorrow, and also give an opportunity to people who have ideas now to share them.
Okay, great. Thanks, Edward, for that very comprehensive overview. So now, for those of you who are wondering, as he said, this is the prelude to the main event. The main event will take place tomorrow, November 25th in Accra, Ghana at 5 p.m. I believe it's at the Kofi Annan Center, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you can follow at informGhana Twitter page for more updates on that. But for now, let's get to know who our panelists are and who's going to be helping us come up with all of these solutions that obviously our leaders are not able to come up with. So we're going to try to help them today. So let's start with Norkplim.
Okay, hi, my name is Norkplim Ahiatrogah. I'm a young man who is very passionate about education and also a very keen interest in governance. So I'm looking forward to bringing some ideas on board as we try to solve the problems we have in Ghana. Thank you.
Great. And then we also have Gameli. Gameli, please unmute yourself. Yeah, it's a bit low, but we can hear you. Just speak up. Okay, it seems like Gameli is having some audio problems. So Gameli is joining us from Kita in the Volta region, and he's going to be talking a lot on education and health, as well as environment. So he's all-rounded, and he should be able to touch on some of the issues. And I didn't introduce myself initially, but my name is Jemila, and I'm a member of Blogging Ghana, and I run the website Circumspect, so I'll be the moderator alongside Edward. Okay, so let's just jump into it. I think we should talk about education, since it seems like we have a lot of people who are interested in that issue. And specifically, Edward, can you give us an overview of what the main challenges regarding education were? What did Inform Ghana find out about that regarding education in the different regions? Edward, if you are talking yourself.
Sorry. So about education in Eastern region, in particular Somanya, teacher absenteeism was a very big deal. I would probably put teacher absenteeism under teacher indiscipline. It looks like the GES doesn't have a strong grip over the teachers in that area, because it's not just absenteeism, but it's also teacher-student relationships. We heard different stories about students getting pregnant by teachers, and it wasn't really the best story. That was one of the problems in education. In the Volta region, one problem came up and on top was so they were worried about the fact that and this is Ho, they were worried about how Ho had lower results, lower standards of education compared to the other regional capitals. And they thought that probably if more resources were provided, that would be awesome. And in Ashanti region, in Kumasi, we also had another problem with education. It was also standards of education, where they realized that the standards in the urban Ashanti region was higher than standards in rural Ashanti region. And so they thought that if the gap were bridged, that wouldn't happen. So these are some of the problems that we identified in education.
Okay, so we have about 5. We can just dig right into right now. So, Norkplim, you told me that you have some good suggestions. Let's hear them on any of the issues that Edward just outlined: teacher absenteeism, resource base, poor results, and then the urban-rural divide. Which one are you going to take?
Okay, I think I'll take the disparity within the quality of education in the rural and the urban areas. First off, I want to quickly find out from Edward if there was a differentiation between the standards in private institutions and then the public ones.
Is Aliprim asking me a question?
Yes.
Yeah, he's asking whether there was a differentiation between public and private institutions that you sampled or visited.
Oh, so well, maybe we run on a wrong assumption, but our assumption was if there are any challenges at all in education, they will be a lot more by the public institutions. So we focus a lot more on the public institutions, and so there were a few players in the private institutions. But yes, to answer Liplin's questions, we realized that the problems highlighted by the public institutions were not faced directly by the private institutions. So the private institutions were better off than the public.
Okay. So we can assume that we are just focusing on the public institutions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
With that, what I can say is that there's the issue of the issue of with the quality of education. It has to do with we try to get the best teachers to teach, because every parent in the city want to get the best for their wards, so they are willing to invest no matter the issue to get their students educated. So I think to address this problem, we will need to have a more concerted approach where governments will come in and say, hey, let us not just get the excuse me for 1 minute. Let us not just government to say, let us not just have the best teachers teaching in the cities, but let us try and find a way to train the teachers in the rural areas also to get the right motivation. Once we have a teacher who is struggling with electricity, struggling with bad roads, struggling with how to get their feeding and all these things, the motivation is very, very low. So some of the needs, the basic things that attract the best teachers to the cities, if we can try and provide those things in the rural settings, I believe that the teachers will also be more motivated to give their best and contribution to make the children more educated or more enlightened.
Okay, so your argument is that basically it's going to be what you're offering the teachers, which will eventually play on the kind of how they perform and how they impact the education that Ghanaian youth are receiving. Gameli, are you all set now? Do you have a comment on that? Okay, I think Gameli is not yet sorted out when it comes to his technical issues. But let's talk a bit more. Okay, go on, Edward.
So I will agree with Aliprim, but I also think that there's a bigger problem that we are not talking about in Ghana. We have a challenging cycle in Ghana, and we don't have to lie about this. So in Ghana, after senior high school, the best students attend uni. Those who don't get into uni find a way into polytechnics, and those who probably don't find their way in these top two would settle for either teacher training college or nursing college. And I feel it's a cycle that is harming our education sector, because in the end, you would have people sign up to become teacher trainees, not because they are interested, but because they didn't get their first two choices, or because they didn't get, to go into uni or polytechnics. And these are, it's a very hard topic. But in the end, you sample the quality of teachers who sign up to teacher trainees, realize that they either fail English, we wrote, and not just one grade. And they are the people who are shaped to teach our kids or our nieces and nephews. And I feel we owe the next generation of Ghanaians a better crop of teachers. I mean, is it wrong or how can we turn the table such that after senior high school, the top students will still want to go into teacher training colleges? I mean, I don't know if you're getting me. What's wrong if someone with 6 A's or 8 A's opts to teach or go to teacher training college? But we've made it such that you pass very well, teacher training college should be off your options, and so we don't get best students become teacher trainees, and so we don't get that quality to teach the next generation of Ghanaians. So the next generation of Ghanaians, most of them are in public institutions, don't get the best, and so in the end they get second standard or third standard education. I don't know if you guys are getting my point, and that's what we need to resolve.
Okay, I think you're both talking about the same thing actually, but you're talking about it from different angles. Basically, Edward, what you're saying is we need to incentivize, graduates or people, young professionals, to see teaching as an attractive occupation right from the jump, and not as a what's it called, like a second choice or a final choice or a backup to whatever professional ambitions that they might have. And then what Norkplim is saying is that we need to make sure that teachers have their basic needs met so that they have more of an incentive to leave the urban areas, which already have some of these amenities, and go into the rural areas. I think I agree with both of you. But more so, I think really it is a question of what are our impressions of teaching and how much value do we place on teaching. At the bottom line, that's what it is, right? We will probably pay bankers way much more money than teachers because we've, as a society, seem to value banking more. And not just Ghana, this seems to be a general thing. And yet, how did the bankers get to where they are? They got there because somebody taught them, or they went through a school system, or they received some knowledge from someone else. So I think also we really need to find a way of changing mindsets about the teaching profession and highlighting the fact that it is crucial and integral to the development of the country as a whole. I don't know, Norkplim, do you have something to add on that? Gameli, are you back on?
Yeah, I'm back on. I'm very sorry for the back and forth. I'm using an iPad and there's a problem with the stability of the app, so it keeps just crashing out. Yeah, but I've been following the discussions, and I think the problem mainly with teacher performance, on one hand, is, like Edward was trying to point out, the relative lower quality of people who go into teacher training institutions and therefore are not able to properly handle the kids and give them the appropriate guidance. But I think the other issue is also with how government, handles teachers, because I mean, people are given extremely low salaries compared to people who do comparable work, even in various parts of the public sector. And I think that serves a lot to demotivate teachers. And so it's little surprising that somebody who has family responsibilities and things would tend to spend a lot of time doing other businesses to be able to cater for their families. But
Gameli again. So basically he agrees with both what Norkplim and Edward were saying. So Norkplim, you were going to say something. You had something else you wanted to add?
Yes, I was just going to agree with Edward on the fact that at the heart of all this is differ from how society sees success or defines success. Because we have a system that encourages those who go and do medicine or no, to go and read on the tertiary level. But if we saw education to be for teachers, to be very, very important, for which we need the very best, or those who are really passionate about it to pursue, I think society will be much, much better. Because if, for example, let me just cite this example. I listen to City FM a lot, the breakfast show, and you hear sometimes the sound clips that they play from our classrooms and even teachers, the language they speak. And we have examples of our parliamentarians, the quality of the English that is spoken on the floor, and that tells you that there's a systemic problem of quality education, whether it's this or the rural. So we have to, as a society, begin to realize that it is not really about once you've made an 8 A's or the best grade, you should go and study medicine or law or engineering. But you should rather chase your passion, you should rather chase what you feel called to do. Because imagine if the late commonwealth drop out of medical school to read the arts or to pursue journalism. You realize that you would have been a great medical doctor, I believe. You would have been such a standing product of Ghana. So I think at the heart of all this is a deeper societal problem that we have to address. That is encouraging our younger ones to chase their dreams, their passions, whatever line profession it is. And then I believe by doing that, we'll have those who are more passionate about education, those who are more passionate about teaching, we'll get them to the classrooms to do the right job. Because once that is their passion, they'll give their all, even if the environment is not suitable. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Norkplim. Okay, so I'm going to share my own personal thoughts on this as well. I think that you're right in saying it's almost an egg before the chicken, chicken before the egg problem, right? Because we don't have an educational structure which encourages people to not only go for those professions that seem to make the most money or to sustain their livelihoods, but also to go for what they're interested in. Then we will end up having people who really want to be in teaching, being in teaching. But then in order to do that, we first have to develop that educational system, right? And so I think that as our current educational system stands, it does us a lot of harm. It actually really does us a lot of harm. I'll give you an example, personal example. So I went to Wesley Girls. After Wesley Girls, I was deciding on which university I wanted to go to. I signed up to go to Legon. I didn't consider tech. I don't know why, but at the time I just didn't consider tech. I applied to Legon and I applied to Ashesi University. I applied to Legon. I had opted for French, geography, and economics as my focus. And then when I got the acceptance letter, they gave me computer science, math, and I think geography. And why did they do this? My dad used to be a lecturer at the University of Ghana in computer science and mathematics. So they kind of just assumed that by virtue of the fact that he was a computer science and math genius, I should probably be the same, and so I should be in that department, which is totally not my core competency or wasn't what I was interested in, right? And ultimately, it really is, it comes down to the policies. I keep asking, why haven't we overhauled our educational policy or educational system since, when was the last one? It was in the 1990s, right? We keep doing piecemeal. We'll pick three years versus 4 years. That doesn't change anything. What are you teaching these people, you know? It's not a question of how long it takes them to be in school. It's a question of what are they learning. And right now, we really should be looking at educational reforms, really, because ICT, yes, fine, people teach what's it called, Microsoft Office Suite, but that's not the standard anymore. You might learn that, but hello, you need to learn other things as well. You need to know how to do research online. You need to know how to cite your articles and all of that stuff. So, talking about what to propose, I would propose reform of the educational system. We need to find out what are the industries looking for skills and knowledge-wise. What are the teachers thinking with regards to what the competencies of young people in schools currently are, and what do we need to add on, what do we need to take out, and what do we need to add on. And then with that, definitely a huge focus, like you said, Norkplim, a huge focus on don't just go for what you think is going to make you money. Also go for what you are passionate about or what you believe are the skill sets that you have. Edward, do you have something to add?
No, what I wanted to add, maybe, I mean, this would just broaden the debate a lot more. But I've had lots of debate with other people, and we usually, the bottom line of the debate is whether or not education should be a decimal or a binary. In other words, should we grade education as 0 or 1? Either you have education or you don't have education. Because, like you mentioned, Jemila, I went to University of Ghana, and usually I look back and ask myself, and I compare my undergrad education to other colleagues of mine who had undergrad education elsewhere, and I asked myself whether what I had was really education. We were given notes to go through and pour during exams time, and the TUS were obviously the best students. So if you had a good memory, you would pass out with good grades. And so I asked myself whether going through 4 years of all of that can be graded as education, or can we say that just because the resources in Ghana are not the best, we should just deal with whatever we have, and because it's better than something, because it's better than nothing else, we can call that education. You know, it's all of that. And I would just suppose that over the fact that sometimes getting half education is actually a disease. It can be more dangerous than not getting education at all. But like I mentioned, this is a whole different topic for another day altogether.
Sorry, Ed, I think you're breaking up.
I am. Can you hear me now?
It seems like you're breaking up. If you could just recap what you said.
I said I said we need to put pressure on our educational authorities to make sure they do a more serious job at educating our undergrads, our graduates. What we have in our universities, if we have to be very fair, it's not education. We are just engaging them for 4 years, and we are giving them a certificate, and they go out there and they have to start everything afresh. That is not education. We need to be serious, a lot more serious about that.
Okay. If I caught the last of what you said, you were basically saying that you do not think we're currently educating young people, young Ghanaians in our universities, and that it's kind of like a check mark, as in we did this, you did this, okay, here's your certificate. Gameli, what would you have to say? You work in education and you've worked as a teacher, and so I'm sure you can share some insights. Do you think we are actually educating or we're simply instructing? Sorry, Gameli. Maybe let's try this. Take off your headphones and just don't use your headphones, and let's see if we can hear you better. Okay, I think we're still having issues with your sound. Let's do this. Just type your response and I'll read it out, okay? Okay, thank you. So, man, we really should be moving on to the next issue. Take off your headphones and just. We should be moving on to the next issue. So I think what we're going to do right now is just leave you with key questions. Number one, are we educating or instructing Ghana's youth? Number two, do we need to embark on educational reforms? And if so, what should that entail, or what should be part of the new educational system, so to speak. Number 3, how can we ensure that we get quality teachers? How can we improve the quality of teachers? And it's not just teachers, but educational officers or professionals in general. How can we ensure that we're getting quality in to bring quality out? So we're going to leave you with those questions that you guys can ponder, and you can share your own thoughts. I will be reading some of the, I think some people are sharing some things. I will be reading some of the stuff on social media in due time. Now let's move on to the next topic. I'm going to leave the more controversial ones for later. So let's talk about health. Let's talk a bit about healthcare. So Edward, do you want to give us a recap on what was said with regards to health?
Yes.
While
yes,
Edward is pulling that up, let me just read what Gameli had to say about education real quick. So Gameli said, I think we can't generally dismiss the efforts of all teachers. Various attempts have been made at reform. I think what we should be doing currently is measuring how well we're doing with regards to the objectives of the current system. So he says, let's take stock of where we are, and then based off of that, we can decide on where next to go. So yeah. Okay, Edward, let's talk a bit about health.
Yes. So on health, health challenge where Eastern region, Kufuri, to be more specific, and Northern region, Tamale, and they had one issue with NHIS. So most of them depend on health insurance cards to get to health, and when intervention was introduced.
Edward, I think you're freezing.
Once you have a card, you don't get the best.
You can go ahead.
Can you hear me now? So, like I said, NHIS challenges were the ones that came on top in Kufodia in the East region and Tamale in the Northern region. We're so happy that NHIS was used by government, but all of a sudden they feel now it's collapsing, or they don't have access to quality health if you have the NHIS. They feel now they are being thrown back into cash and carry, and for them that was their biggest worry. Basically, NHI, National Health Insurance Scheme.
Okay, so with regards to the National Health Insurance Scheme, I actually know very little about that because I've never actually used it. And anytime I have been sick at home, it's been, cash and carry. I guess that's what it is. So I'm going to leave you guys to give insights into that that particular issue. What do you think is the main problem, Ed, with regards to what they were saying about they think that the program is being scaled back or is not being used as it should be? And I think Elijah just joined us. Hi, Elijah.
Hi, Jemila.
You're probably muted, but that's fine. So we'll rope you into the conversation soon. Just send me a note on the chat if you would like to comment on the health issue, and then I'll rope you in. Okay, Ed, go ahead.
So I think the issue with National Health Insurance Scheme, in fact, even the issue with education is all to government. And let's be blunt about this. Our government collects levies, collects taxes, and they don't use it for what it's meant for. So you, in the end, realize that toll levies are used to pay teachers, and National Insurance Scheme levies are used to build roads. We have a bad levying and pay system. So you realize that a lot of money is going into the levy, into the fund, but hospitals claims, because it's an insurance, and when hospitals request for claims from insurance companies, they are told there's no money. And if you remember this year, some hospitals threatened to pull out to go on strike. This is because they hadn't received payments who didn't pay for their treatment. And so you realize that more hospitals are going on their knees because they have to go several months. And this whole problem goes up to government. Government is not paying them on time, and sometimes not even paying them at all. Second problem is the public hospital or the public medical practitioners are not motivated enough. Not just about salary, but they don't have the right tools. Could you imagine? I have friends who say they have buckets, like buckets in homes, in theaters. And these are not supposed to be there. You are supposed to have more instruments to deliver good health service. So our government is ultimately to blame for the collapse of NHIS. Monies are collected, but they are not paid to the right people.
Okay, so Edward, what are you proposing for how we should address these issues? Because we've talked about the challenges, so we want to hear. Do you have something to propose, or either of the? Okay, Norkplim has something to propose, so let's hear while Ed thinks about this. This is something that how many governments have tried to resolve, but Ed is going to give us a one-shot solution. So let him work on that. Norkplim, let us know what you're thinking, and after that, we'll rope in Elijah.
My solution is this. It's very simple, but it takes a lot of guts to do. We should completely divulge the National Health Insurance institution from government. Last 4 years or 6 years ago, we had a government or political party that was campaigning on the promise that when he comes into power, there will be a one-time premium system that would guarantee that everybody access healthcare. I think they have messed it up. I don't believe that they will ever get it right because of track record and how our political leaders tend to do things in this country. So my solution is that we should totally win it off government, where the NHIS is as an institution on its own. It is managed, maybe not completely privatized, but we have a huge stake of private involvement so that they will run it efficiently, because there are lots of private health insurance schemes coming up. Lots of corporate institutions are signing out from them, and they are making good money. They are doing very well. I believe that NHIS has stand a very great chance of becoming doing the work that is meant to do. We just have to get the right people to manage it, and I don't trust governments to ever get it right. The president is there. They have shown us time and time and again that they just can't do it. The same they have done with education. One party says 3 years, one party says 4 years. It's the same circle over and over again. But health is not one issue we should give to them to toy with. Yeah, that's my contribution.
Okay, so to play devil's advocate, you're saying let's turn healthcare over to the private sector. Do you think that's going to make it affordable for the average Ghanaian? The average Ghanaian probably, I've forgotten what the statistics are, but the average Ghanaian earns under $2 a day, right? Because there's 60% of, about 50 to 60% of people, Ghanaians are still pretty poor. Huh? So if we hand it over to the private sector, and yes, they're going to be able to manage it effectively, but do you think we're going to do that at the cost of compromising affordability?
I don't think so. I think if we had a system in place that has the right stakeholders, government is still going to be a stakeholder, but a very minimum one. So we still get the contributions in. That private institution would take on board, or would consider the fact that there are a lot of people who are poor who may not necessarily be able to afford the premiums. But with also how insurance works is like the masses pay for the sick ones. That's the basic principle of health insurance. So with the masses, the largest contributions that are going to be subscribers, you'll be able to have that compensate to a large extent for those who are taking care. Because the system as we have it now is not working. It was working a few years ago to some extent, but now it's just going down the slide like that. And unless we do something drastic, I believe it's gonna die out in the end. The poor woman down there in the village in the rural areas are the ones going to suffer.
Okie dokie. So that's what Norkplim thinks. We're going to pose the question to you guys. Do you think that we should have the people who can afford it pay for the people who can't? And while you think about that, let's move on to Elijah. Elijah, if you can just introduce yourself real quick, make sure that you are unmuted, and then let us know what your solution for healthcare in Ghana is.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Elijah Takoradi. I'm with the informGhana project also. Basically, one area I will want the national health, like the health system in Ghana, to look at is to probably put mental health under the national health insurance scheme. We know most of the hospitals, most of the mental homes aren't under the health insurance scheme, and it's quite difficult getting drugs for most of the patients who get admitted over there. Like Edward said earlier, we have statutory payments which government is supposed to give to these health facilities that they aren't doing. You get to most of the health facilities where patients who are having the health insurance cards aren't attended to, cause payments which have to come from the national NHIA isn't coming, and you can't blame them much. These payments probably shouldn't be going through body where those monies go to, and we can hold those bodies accountable as to giving back the monies to the health providers, so that we don't have to always go back to government to get statutory payments which have to go to the health facilities. Thank you.
Okie dokie. So two things that Elijah talked about: mental health, and then making sure that statutory payments go through on time. Let me just scoot over to Twitter to read some of the other comments that have been coming through. So now you says, she's talking about education. So she says, I would go with providing practical training on e-commerce and crafts training. And then we have Stephen Ansa, who says the NHIS program does not cover most of the sicknesses. You end up virtually paying for everything. Still moving on. There's Patrick, who agrees that what we have in our universities is not education. We're just engaging them for 4 years. Okay. Does anyone else have a comment on the health issue? Gameli, do you want to type your comment and then we will send it forth? Don't worry, Gameli is definitely contributing and he has some good comments on health. So please share that with us. And then let me ask a question, more general and personal question to everybody. When was the last time you went to the clinic or the hospital? And what was the entire process like? Do you have an NHIS card? Did you plan to pay everything? Like, what was that process like? Edward, I'm going to skip to you. When was the last time and what was your experience like? And based off of that, what would you recommend, even if it's just for healthcare professionals, because we're talking about health in general. So. Okay, looks like Ed has been kicked off. Norkplim, would you like to comment?
Yes. I believe, I think the last time I was in the hospital was when I sent a cousin of mine. I wasn't sick myself. We went to the police hospital here in Kosu. The experience was, it was an emergency, so we went there around between 6 to 7 a.m. And we went through the normal system. But there are two things I noticed from there. There was a nurse that was supposed to be stationed to take the temperature of everybody that was in, to as a way of trying to fight Ebola or try to detect it. The nurse started work, I believe, around 8 a.m. So all those who came before that didn't go through that process of checking, and that I felt was I don't know how to describe it. I think the Ebola patient will only show up to the hours for case. So that alone tells you the system we have, where we claim to have. Government is always claiming that we are prepared for Ebola, but the situation on the ground doesn't reflect that. And also, my cousin and I had to carry some extra money because we knew that though we had national insurance card, there was definitely a way we need to pay for some services, and we did pay. So yes, on paper it looks good. It looks like national health insurance is there, driving, but the reality on the ground doesn't reflect that.
Okay, Elijah, would you like to comment on what your most recent experience with the Ghana healthcare system has been?
For me, personally, I've never used the national health insurance. I've never registered for it before. Anytime I have to go to the hospital, I go through the cash and carry system. I don't want to go through the experiences of people who've probably used the health insurance scheme or the cards and haven't been able to get the kind of services they are supposed to get at the hospitals. My most recent experience with the health service in Ghana had to do at the Cocoa Clinic. I get there, I pay for my card. Because I'm paying, everything goes on real quick for me. I'm made to see the doctor in the consulting room. He attends to me if I have to go to the lab to go for further tests. So I feel when I'm paying. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So I guess I've just sent out a message to see how many other people are actually using the NHIS and how many other people are not. Like I said, I know zero about it. So it's very clear that I'm cash and carry as well. But that said, I think I've heard at least 2 or 3 cases where recently actually, where people have gone to the emergency room of one hospital or the other, and they have either not been admitted because of payment issues, or they're there and then there isn't the right equipment or the right medicine, and in the end people lose their loved ones. So it really is, it's not just a policy issue, it's a life and death situation really, and I think we also do need a bit more awareness on the National Health Insurance Scheme, because it sounds very complicated. So there needs to be a better educational campaign built around it so that people can understand what the benefits are and make sure that people actually benefit from it. Because as someone tweeted, I end up covering everything even though I'm signed up to the scheme. So Gameli is saying, personally, he needs to upgrade his registration, and because they have a tight budget, because we have a tight budget for the NHIS, we need to rethink the structure of our health system and do more for prevention as well. Okay, so I think we've talked extensively about education initially, and then now healthcare. I'm just going to run through one more to see what people are saying online. Anatu Abdullahi says we need to depoliticize our educational sector. There should be a long-term plan for education that is not changed with the change in government. To get quality teachers, we need to raise the bar on the qualifications for becoming one. We need the best brains as teachers. I think there was one initially that we got from someone who's based in London. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I can't seem to find her comment, but I think she was talking about she's doing some research, and based off of the dissertations that she's seeing, they're not even following standard procedure and format for submitting a dissertation, which tells you these are university students. These are things that you should know by the end of your first or second year because you would have written some papers. Okay, so moving on, we're going to move on to governance, because I think there's a lot being said about agriculture right now, and I actually think there's a lot of solutions that are coming up with regards to the agricultural sphere. So let's move on to governance. I'll have Edward share with us what the findings were with regards to governance. But last comment on health from Gameli. He says, Ghana's disease burden shows that people are getting sick mostly due to lack of awareness. Health authorities need to get people to make more lifestyle changes that will improve health and well-being. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. So coming down to solutions, you also make sure that you are actually taking care of yourself so that you don't have to get to the clinic or the hospital in the first place. Edward, do you want to share with us what the findings were from informGhana's outreach on governance? Okay, Edward is off the Hangout. Let me see if I can find out. Okay, here. So governance issues that came up, lack of citizen engagement in local government, and also transparency in the management of oil and gas funds. Now I'm going to pick the last one first because I have been asking that question as well. What is going on with our oil and gas revenue? We don't seem to be hearing too much about it, not as we did, when we just discovered oil and everybody was excited about it. What do you guys think? Number one, do you know what's going on in this sphere? Do you stay updated? And if so, if so, how do you think the government can, how do you think we as a nation can better inform on those issues? And what would you propose with regards to better managing the sector? I'm going to go with Norkplim first.
Okay. As far as the oil and gas revenues are concerned, I'm not really informed on that. I think the last time I heard something on that was when some of the workers were about going on strike or so. So with that, I think I also heard some time ago that Ghana gets about 20% of the revenue, and then the foreign partners get about 80% of it. If that is true, I don't really know how that is done, if that is a normal practice. But as to how the revenue is being put to use, well, it does not reflect much in economic stability, given the fact that we are still struggling this year. I think with government, the issues are clear. When you have a leadership that is not very efficient, that doesn't seem to be on top of issues, we shouldn't be surprised if things are not being managed well. I believe until we have a governance system that ensures that the right people are put at the right places to give us results, we'll keep going in circles. And to also chip in this, with the energy ministry, given the power crisis we are having, what did the president do? He has set up a new ministry, that is a ministry of power, or power ministry, to as it were, to tackle the issue as its response to tackling the issue of doom because the citizens are getting affected. I have a lot of reservations about that decision. I think that it's not the best decision at the moment. I don't know what thinking actually went into it, but it doesn't serve us any good. I don't think by creating a new ministry, our problems will be solved. That also goes to emphasize my point that we need to have a system, as far as governance is concerned, where we don't have political appointees being there just because they have helped finance the party campaign, or they are cronies of the president or anything, but we need to get a system where the best minds are put in charge of this sector to give us the results we need. That way, when they are not producing results, we can fire them and then be sure that we are serious as a nation and get the results for where our resources are coming from.
Okie dokie. Elijah, your thoughts? Sorry, Elijah, I don't know if you can hear us, but if you have any thoughts on the governance of the oil and gas sector, and also, yeah, oil and gas sector, please go ahead. Okay, I think he's thinking. So while he's thinking, I'll make a comment on that. Yes, Norkplim, I think it's actually 10%, so it's lower than you imagined. I think it's 10% last I checked, and I totally agree with you. Personally, I think we should not have started producing or inviting foreign companies to produce oil until we had our regulatory framework down pat. That's my personal opinion, because I think we were just, I don't know if it was trying to fit into the political cycle to say that this happened during our tenure or what the situation was, but it was very clear. A lot of people who reviewed the document said that it was not up to standard, and that there were loopholes. And as you can see, even with the companies that are in the sector, they're yet to pay taxes. They're yet to pay corporate taxes. Last I checked, like I said, I haven't heard too much about it, but last I checked, which was, I would say, first quarter of this year, they're yet to pay corporate taxes. Why? Because there's a loophole in the what's it called? In the laws, which says they don't need to pay taxes up until a certain point, and they're like, well, we haven't gotten to that point yet, so there's no way we're going to pay taxes. So I think we really need to take a more of a long-term approach to a lot of the policies that we develop. Yes, it would be nice to say that you implemented the petroleum bill or whatever during your tenure, but that's going to be the foundation of everything else. And so if that is weak, you're essentially not the person who implemented it, but the person who set that sector up for doom. And I think we need to be very clear and start calling our leaders out on things like that. We need to make sure that we don't slack off on it, because once we do, then you never know what's going on in the sector. I had no idea about this new power ministry, so once again, it's taking a short-term approach to a long-term issue. And there was something I read earlier this morning. I think it was someone who is part of the one of the think tanks that focuses on energy in Ghana, made a comment that really just pissed me off. Made a comment saying that you can't really blame anyone in particular. I'm paraphrasing here, but it's pretty similar to what the person said. You can't really blame anyone in particular when it doesn't rain as much as it should. And that was his reasoning for why the electricity problem is nobody's big issue.
Interesting.
It is ridiculous. It really is ridiculous, because number one, it's not like we don't have the information out there. There is a World Bank document that clearly states, done by the Ghana team. There are some Ghanaians on board. You can check that information. That clearly states that even if the government, or even if Ghana was to use all of its available resources towards the energy sector, we're not going to solve the problem. So it's clear, it's there, and many people could say whatever they want and say, combine it this way, combine it that way. But you have to keep that in mind. The issue is, this is not something that's going to be solved within the next 2 to 5 years. So the electricity problem is going to keep getting worse. Everybody needs to be on board of that. And I think our government officials need to come clear on that and stop. How many times have they said, oh, we're going to solve the Drimsor problem within the next 3 months, especially in when was the election? 2012. It was like every 3 months they say it's going to be solved. But let's be real here, it's not going to be solved, because it's not something that even the most developed nations still grapple with power issues and still continuously try to improve it. So don't come and claim that it's going to be something that's going to be done, in a jiffy. That's not happening. So we need to be very honest about these issues. And once that is done, then you should say, okay, what are the crucial, and I guess this is my proposed, I wouldn't call it a solution, but this is my proposal. What are the crucial services for running our country? Identify the crucial services. So at any given time, you should know that at least Kolebu will have electricity because, and this is obviously just in Accra, but identify at least one hospital in each region that at no point in time should have an electricity outage. And if it does, you should have a backup for it. If it means generators, try to centralize it so that if there should be any disaster, God forbid, right now in Ghana, and it's not improbable, we're just lucky for whatever reason that we don't have any of these disasters, right? But if there was ever to be any large-scale disaster right now, do you know the number of people who would die, not because of healthcare per se, but because there was no electricity or there was no water?
Yeah.
So we need to come up with some framework where you have essential services and those are always running regardless of what is going on, right? How can an entire country have light off, the entire country have light off like 3 times this year alone? That makes no sense. So I personally think, start, focus on the essentials. What are the essentials? Fine, we're not going to have electricity for the next 10 years. What are the essential services? Which areas are most essential for having these things? And not just in Accra, again, because not everybody lives in Accra. The majority of people don't actually live in Accra. So across the 10 regions. Figure that out, and then start to say, okay, what are our options for alternative sources of electricity? We cannot rely on the Akosombo Dam forever. That's not going to happen. That was built when our population was way smaller than it is right now. So this is not just on the current government, but this is on any other government that has been in power, and all of us over the past 20 years, because we knew we were growing, we were having babies here and there, we're having babies all over the place. Obviously, the population is going to grow. And so what are we doing in order to ensure that that element is accounted for? So we need to be very honest about some of these issues. Okay, I got very incensed here. I'm going to calm myself down. Edward, do you have anything to add?
So I initially directed our educational and issues government. I think I would take it higher. I would blame it on the citizens. Jemila, this is it. 66,000 people in a particular constituency know their MP doesn't know how to read and write. However, 66,000 people vote for him to go to parliament to do what? To do what? I'm not saying you need a PhD to go to parliament. I'm saying that we have politicized the governance of Ghana so much so that we don't get the right people in power, and they get on there, and what the policies they make affect us. So it's a chicken and egg thing. We want our party to empower so much so that we don't care who we are voting for. In the end, we just want MPP or NDC to be there. So in the end, the technocrats and the people who can really do the thinking never get to represent, never get to see their nomination, never gets to see the day of light, the light of day. So we also have to take the blame. We also have to stop this tribalism, this politicization of governance. Until we do that, we are going to be in a cyclical problem every now and then.
I think that is a perfect segue to the second part of the governance issue, and it's a question of citizen participation in governance. I think Edward hit the notes on all counts. It's not just about the government. Who do our leaders come from? Our leaders are a reflection of our society, whether we like it or not, whether I would like to be associated with this or that politician or not. The point is we're all Ghanaians, and de facto we are linked in that way. Gameli, I see you're still typing, so let us know what you're thinking with regards to that. I know you worked on the Ghana Decides project, for instance, and there were a lot of insights with regards to citizen participation. Can you touch a bit on that? Norkplim, do you have anything to share on that issue?
I disagree with last point he made that he would rather blame citizens because I come from the Volta region. I visited recently and I realized that the people, most of them, are not educated when it goes to the really rural places. And their perception of an goes to the fact that we need somebody who will provide us water, will provide us road or something. The people's man is the one for. They are not educated to that level where they know that we need somebody there who will go to parliament and project our views and make inputs that will go into formulation of laws. They don't have that education, they don't have that level of understanding. All they see or all they hear about is, okay, this person is good, or this person is a party man, he has to go there, or he is his 10, or this person has been the MP, so now let's give it to this family or this client, so this person comes from this client. That is their level of the education that informs the votes they make. You see? And there are some of them to now vote for party A no matter what. And they vote for candidate A because it's on this ticket. That's the bottom line. And it goes to the level of education or how much education you have on this things when you talk of civic education. So I think, again, it is a fault of government because they are not educating these people. And come to think of it, it's in their best interest. Because once they are not really educated, they can still give them the 5 cities, the 20 cities at the end of the day and still secure their votes.
Okay, so I'm going to take a step back a bit, take us a step back. We're not laying blame, okay? So ultimately, it's all of us, whether it's government or it's citizens, we're all in the same pot, okay? So let's talk about solutions, right? You bring up a very important point that people don't know. It's awareness and education. People don't know that this is the process. I mean, off the top of my head, I probably don't know either, besides knowing that they're parliamentary elections. But what happens before then, I have zero idea. So yes, it is an issue of educating people about civic education. I can't remember if we still have civic education. Do we have civic education in Ghanaian schools? Is that part of the curriculum? Okay, so that's another question, right?
Yeah.
I honestly can know, actually. I don't remember ever being taught about how elections happen or voting happens. So no, I don't think so. Not when I was in primary school. I don't know about now. So that's one thing. We should find a way of including civic education in the educational system. And basically, the focus there is not necessarily saying, oh, this is how you vote. Fine, you'll say you vote when you're 18 years old, and then maybe you would focus the more in-depth training for, let's say, JSS students who are going to become voters soon. But I think the civic education really should focus on issues of national identity and what it means to be a Ghanaian, because I also think that that sentiment is non-existent. It is. You can call yourself a Ghanaian, you can say you like fufu, you like banku, you like the Black Stars, but even when the Black Stars falter, you're there bashing them like no man's business. So I think that's also another thing. It's a question of national identity and the civic education. We need to be talking about those issues. What does it mean to be a Ghanaian? What is our ultimate objective or goal? How many people know the Constitution? I know there's an initiative going on right now. I'm trying to see if I can pull up the name, where there are a group of young Ghanaians who are actually doing exactly that. They're educating on the Constitution in light of the Constitution reform and trying to get some consensus on what some of the key elements should be. So we need more of that, and they're doing an amazing daily Constitution. Thank you, Norkplim. So Daily Constitution is doing that, and you also have, if I remember correctly, there was a recent panel discussion on corruption and saying kick corruption out, talking about those issues. So we also need to take the discussion from, in as much as we say it's not MPB, it's not NDC, we ourselves, when we have these discussions, yes, they're the most easy reference point, but we need to move the discussion from talking about those personalities, bearing in mind that per the Constitution, some of them are not going to be around within the next 4 or 5 years. So if we limit the conversation to just them, then we're going to be having the same conversation every single cycle. So we need to take the conversation a bit upward and say, what are we aiming for? What should MPs be doing? What are the minimum qualifications for an MP? How is it that an MP doesn't even know how to say the national pledge? That's serious. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. I'm just going to read what Gameli was saying. I think informGhana is doing a good job getting people online to be aware about the issues. Yes, obviously, informGhana, we're having these discussions because of informGhana, so that says it all. We need to do more to trickle down the awareness. It looks like the better long-term solution is to fix education. I agree 100%. Anybody else have something to add? Let me see if there's anything.
Yeah, I wanted to say something.
Edward, go on. Go on.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have realized how passionate Ghanaians are when the Black Stars mess up. We actually call for the players' heads. We call for the coach's head. How can we transform or transmit that kind of passion into governance? How can we call for the Assemblyman's head, his head, the MP's head, the President's head when things go wrong? Ghanaians are so accommodating when it comes to governance, but they are not when it comes to football. When we don't go beyond the first round, we ask for the coach to be sacked. But when we sleep in dark days, all we do is just rant and we move on. How can we transmit that kind of responsibility in football? And we need to find these leaders accountable as well.
Thank you very much. Accountability is key. Norkplim, Gameli, anything else to add?
Yes. Well, I think in response to Edward's question, I think Black Stars give us hope when they are going to a competition. They give us hope that they are going to win, and we actually support them. We support them because we hope that they will win. And in the times that they lose, it is that hope that gets disappointed. So we see a lot of emotions. And with governments, I think over the years or in recent past, we have seen a lot of disappointment. We vote for MPs, they go out there, they do their own thing, they come back in 4 years. Some even visit their constituencies only during election period. So I think what is actually going on, or why we don't have that much involvement from the youth especially, is because we are gradually losing hope or confidence in our government structure or in our leaders, because time and again they have proven that they cannot give us results. So in order not to be disappointed, or in order not to be wounded or hurt, I think we have put up a defense mechanism where we just don't care anymore. We settle for anything they give us. We'll complain, we'll move on. The next day another issue will come up, we'll complain and we'll move on. And there's a circle that's going in. That is what has grown into the lack of civic engagements, I think.
I mean, you said something that really gave me pause. You said Ghanaians are very passionate about the Black Stars because they give us hope. And so when they don't deliver, we get very emotional about it. So now my next question is, where else could we potentially put our hope? And it doesn't necessarily mean we put our hope in one specific person. Maybe we shouldn't be focusing so much on what the government can do. Maybe there should be more of an awareness of what you as a citizen can do, right? Because if you cannot have hope in yourself, then who else should have hope in you? Like, bottom line, if you do not believe in yourself, who else should believe in you? Same thing goes for our leadership, right? So I think we definitely, you touched on a very important point. We need to be thinking of other avenues of uplifting our nation, such that if one avenue falls, we know that we have others. So right now we don't have any backups because even the Black Stars seem to be disappointing us all the time. So where are people getting their hope from? Where are they getting the motivation to continue, and how can we support that and celebrate that and highlight those things? And as for the talk and not do anything, I think that is changing. I honestly believe that's changing a bit. You are seeing people and little movements coming up here and there. The Occupy Ghana movement, for instance, and then the Daily Constitution people, informGhana. So I think that is gradually changing. But let's be real, it's limited mainly to those of us who are online. Yeah. So that's not sustainable either. So it's a question of grassroots involvement. The There was a recent BBC debate here in Tunisia that I attended, and listening to them, I was just like, man, Ghana, we are nowhere. And when I say we're nowhere, I'm not talking about development. I'm not talking about infrastructure, roads, electricity. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about people feeling a conviction with regards to their country. And a number of times I've asked the question, what would you do? How far would you go for your country? Would you be willing to die for your country? And I know it sounds like very, very funny questions, like why the hell will I die for my country when I have a family to feed? but seriously, think about it. The big six, Kwame Nkrumah and the many other people who we probably don't know about, they literally put their lives on the line, huh? That's what they did. They put their lives on the line because they said, this is not working, this is not how we should be living, and we want to change it. They put their lives on the line for it. I'm not saying people should go on suicide missions, no, but I think each one of us really needs to ask ourselves that question, how far would you go for your country? And back to the pool of politicians and leaders that we have, yes, many of us will say, I don't want to go into politics because it's too dangerous, it's a whatever game, it's a dirty game. I've said that many times myself, you know. But then you see a situation and you know that, man, I could do this 500 times better than what's being done. So we also have to honestly ask ourselves, if I am not willing to put myself forth, do I even have a right to criticize the one who's doing it, even if that person doesn't have the best intentions? So let's throw it back to ourselves, really, because it is a question of citizen involvement. So Gameli has a comment. These convictions come about because of what those countries do for their citizens. As Ghanaians, we're usually left on our own. I'm going to counter that immediately. No. I'll give you a general scenario. Tunisians had zero freedom in comparison to Ghana. I said Ghanaians have more freedom because you could get up and talk about the issues, and yes, you rant and probably not follow up with action, but you could talk about it. And freedom of expression is such a powerful thing. If you shut somebody up, do you know what hurts and what you're doing to that person? So that was the situation they were living in, and they got fed up of it. When asked what was the reason that you guys decided to have this revolution, number one, obviously, the revolution wasn't planned. So people talking about a Ghanaian revolution and are thinking of planning it, that's not going to be a revolution. It's going to be probably an impeachment or a coup even, right? But they said it was a question of human dignity. And we did not feel like our dignity as human beings were being respected. So when I talk about conviction, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not thinking about the infrastructure, the development, any of that. I'm talking about as you as a human being, like what do you believe you deserve as a Ghanaian citizen, and how are you going to contribute to making it happen? I think those are the questions we need to ask ourselves. We are miles away from having any kind of revolution like what Tunisia had, even Egypt. Egypt went horribly bad, Libya. Those same people, they asked them, would you do it again? They said yes. And I will share the link to that discussion. You will hear it in their voices. It's a level of conviction that we as Ghanaians do not yet have. That's the bottom line, in my opinion. Gameli is saying, okay, we work to improve the situation. It's a daily struggle. But the truth is, you wonder if we're really serious about engaging the talent of our citizens to bring change. And that's it. That's exactly it. What is the value? Where do we place our value? That's all I'm asking. Where do we place our value? Okay, so we are way beyond our allocated time. I'm just going to read some of the comments online real quick, and then we can wrap it up. So I asked Edward tweeted, would you die for your country? Someone said no, please. Edward said no, please. So Edward, I ask you why. We'll come back to you. Stephen Ansa said, I would do my best to make the country, but will not die for the country. Who else do we have here? Okay, so that seems to be the main main ones, comments that we have so far. So to wrap up, let's wrap up on a positive note because it seems like you got a bit impassioned. So let's wrap up on a positive note. If you were to propose, you could pick any of the areas: education, governance, health. We didn't talk about Agric, but if you want to propose on that, if you want to propose one thing that the government, you think it would be feasible for the government to implement immediately and for citizens to support, what would that be for moving the country forward? So Norkplim, would you take a stab at that?
Yeah, I'll sum it all up in this. Our two main political parties, or whichever political parties will be contesting in the next election, should give us one candidate that will have the conviction, about even 90% of the conviction that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had about transforming Ghana. And then we would have a leader that was hope in the system and push us forward, because all the people they are presenting, I've even lost confidence in them. Some people even say they are not going to vote in the next election because they don't see any change. They should give us a leader, one leader that will come in the same, that will inspire hope, that will actually do the work. And then all of us will rally around him, because I think that's the only solution. Because at the end of, at the core of all the problems we're discussing is leadership. And that will be my solution, or my summary of all the discussions we've had.
Okie dokie. So put forth one leader who has the conviction and who can do the work, and let us rally around that leader. So that's what Norkplim suggests. Okay, Edward, would you like to tell us what your takeaways are? Gameli, please type, and I'll read it afterwards, okay?
Mine is a bit radical. One, in Ghana, in order for you to vote, you need to be 18 and of sound mind. I want us to introduce another requirement. Because being 18 and of sound mind, I have realized after talking to so many people, it's not enough. You need to be civic. You need to have civic education. And mind you, I don't mean formal education. I mean civic education. If you queue at 5 a.m. and you're voting for an MP, and I asked you who you are voting for, you need to basically have an understanding of what the MP's role is. Else, I feel your vote should be nullified if you don't even know what you're voting for. That if we begin to be more serious about taking power from people who determine who lead the country, people will be a lot more engaged in understanding what is required of our leaders. That is my one solution that I feel will solve all these problems.
Okie dokie. I think Gameli is still typing. So while he's typing, I'm going to just read here. Just more people saying they won't die for the country. Okay. So let me try to think of my own response to that question of what we would need in order to move forward. I think it's also going to be a bit radical, towing Edward's line, maybe even more than his. But what I would say personally is put NPP and NDC on a timeout. Seriously, because I think what they stand for and who they are permeates every level of our society to the point where people don't see anything else. And so if we were to put them on a timeout, I mean, yes, it might be the same people who are running, but if we were to say for the next 5 years, nobody is allowed to use the terms NPP, NDC, and those slogans and party colors, I think it will open up our impressions of what the other possibilities are, because it's just ridiculous how every single conversation, even among people who know the issues, always boils down to NPP and NDC and not just Ghana. So I know the government would never implement that, but personally, I think I think that's what we would need ultimately if we were to get out of this rut that we're in. Gameli, I don't see your comment, so I'm going to assume you don't have anything else to add. Or you can try talking. Let's see if your mic is working now. Hello? Okay, sadly we can't hear him. So we're going to wrap up now because we are over our time. But for those who tuned in and joined us on Twitter, thank you so much for joining us. As you can see, it was a very exciting panel.
Hello. Yeah.
Oh, great, Gameli. Go on.
I just wanted to suggest that government can, for example, like put in place some program that can attract university graduates in various fields. So we already training teachers at the university level, for example, in various subjects, and these teachers normally go to teach at senior high schools, and very few of them at basic schools. But people who are interested in education can, for example, take side courses alongside their regular studies in university, where the country has some kind of professional certification for teachers, that they will take that alongside their studies. By the time they are done with their regular university, they may have qualified professionally in education, and these teachers can be paid at a level comparable to most of the other workplaces in the service sector. If they are paid, their pay is comparable to some of these other services, I think more capable people will be interested in education, and they might be more inclined to ensuring in the system. The second thing I would like to also say is that maybe we should be thinking in terms of motivating teachers based on the actual output. So if there's a way of like assessing how well people perform on their jobs, then that can affect their salary, for example. So if you know that depending on how well you perform, you're going to earn a certain amount of money, I'm sure you probably put in more effort to get it done.
Okay, thank you so much, Gameli, for sharing those two good points. I think they're really good suggestions. So for those of you who joined us, thank you for joining us and for sharing your own impressions online. As we stated in the beginning, this is just the precursor to tomorrow's event, and tomorrow's event is going to be definitely way more structured, and people are going to come with key pointers and presentations and a debate, and we're talking about citizen engagement here. So if you're one of the people who thinks we need more citizen engagement, definitely go to the event. It's taking place tomorrow, November 25th at 5 p.m. Ghana time, and it's going to be at the Kofi Annan ICT Center. So thank you for joining us again, and a big thanks once more to Inform Ghana for organizing this event, and Blogging Ghana as well as Star Ghana that finances the Inform Ghana project. Have a good afternoon.